What is up, everybody? My name is Nate, and I am beyond excited to welcome you all back to another episode of the Chokehold Hour. Now, I know it's been about a month. I took a little hiatus from podcasting because I was studying abroad, as you all know, in London with the journalism school at the University of Florida. And while my time in London was an extremely enriching experience, and I want to thank the journalism school for giving me the opportunity to dabble in reporting outside of mixed martial arts, where the focus was European soccer. Now that I am back in America, it is time to get back to my one true love, mixed martial arts, and the best promotion there is representing the sport of mixed martial arts, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the UFC. I am so happy to be back because now that I have no responsibilities, you can expect me to be back on my grind, 2 podcasts a week, a fight preview, post-fight recap, and they are going to be bangers as always. As you all probably can assume, while I was in London, I was doing some reporting myself, had some projects to work on in relation to European soccer, but again, like I said, I'm back. No responsibilities, nothing else to do other than talk about what I love, mixed martial arts. So here we are, I am back, and I am so excited to be back. Now, as you all probably know, we're going to be doing a pre-fight preview for the fight night this weekend between Magomedov and Sean Strickland. Guys, this is going to be a banger at the 185-pound division. You have Sean Strickland, who sticks behind his jab and puts together fundamentals and strong boxing combinations. You have a guy who's a veteran, a guy who we know what he can do, going up against this newcomer who's only fought in the UFC for a total of 19 seconds. He looked damn good in those just under 20 seconds. But before we get to this fight preview, I want to send a huge shout out to Venom and Matt Frivola for sending me these signed Venom gloves. You got Steamroller, MF Steamroller, Matt Frivola autographed the gloves, and I also got a picture of Matt Frivola knocking Otman Adazar clean out cold, and you can read it here. All gas, no brakes, MF Steamroller, baby. Guys, this is my first piece of signed memorabilia that I've received from anyone, let alone a fighter and Venom themselves. So thank you both so much. Matt Steamroller Frivola from New Jersey. I'm from New York, representing the Northeast in the UFC, a local hero of mine. We got the picture, we got the gloves, and honestly, it means the world to me, guys. So Matt Frivola, thank you so much. And Venom, thank you for putting together this giveaway, which gave me a chance at winning, and I just got lucky and did. So thank you both so much. That being said, we are going to jump right into it, guys. It's time to do our fight preview, and usually, as you all know, we focus on the main card, but we have somewhat of a special case in the featured bout of the prelims this week. So we're going to jump on over to the prelims and start with Kevin Lee's return to the UFC. Kevin Lee, who's a very talented fighter, a legit top 10 contender at the lightweight division, challenged for the interim title, came up short against a prime Tony Ferguson, brought the fight to Charles Oliveira, came up short, but Kevin Lee has some highlights, and he definitely has some skill. He produced one of the greatest knockouts in UFC history with that beautiful lead high kick over Gregor Gillespie. That was an incredible performance by him, so we know what Kevin Lee can do. We know what his name brings and the value he adds to a card, especially on the prelims. But the UFC is doing him no favors, matching him up against Rinat Fakhretdinov. Rinat is an absolute dog, guys. Rinat has endless cardio. He's a high-level wrestler, and he has all the tools to pose a problem to Kevin Lee in every way, shape, or form in that octagon. Rinat is a pressure fighter. He comes at you, he moves forward, he shoots for takedowns, and he swarms you with top control, just like Khabib. He's a Marab-type fighter. This guy is a high-level wrestler. Now, we know Kevin Lee has the wrestling base, but we've seen when he's fought pressure guys like Charles Oliveira, he's folded to that pressure, and he ends up getting submitted. Now, I know Kevin Lee is extremely talented, but we have to look at Rinat's past. Rinat is coming off of a dominating win, an absolutely dominating win, and before that, he dominated Brian Battle. So first, he beat Andreas Michailidis. This was his most recent win. It was a solid win. Andreas isn't a name that holds much value to me after seeing how he fought against Alex Pereira, but Rinat absolutely outclassed Bryan Battle. Bryan Battle is a very talented fighter. He's coming off of, in his two of his last 3 fights, the 2 fights that were not Renat, he put Gabe Green to sleep with a beautiful hook in just 14 seconds. And before that, he knocked out Takashi Soto clean with a disgusting left high kick that he set up beautifully behind a left hand. It was almost reminiscent of the Leon Edwards Kamaru Usman knockout. Bryan Battle is the real deal. He defeated Treson Gore, the heavy favorite to win the Ultimate Fighter. Bryan Battle, a winner of the Ultimate Fighter with these 2 incredible knockouts. His name holds value. What happened when he was faced off against Renat? He got dominated. It wasn't even close. Renat landed somewhere around 110 total strikes to Bryan Battle's not even 30. He was in the 20s. That is almost an 80 strike disparity. Guys, Rinat Fakhretdinov is the real deal. As I said before, this guy's cardio is endless. He really reminds me of a Merab type fighter. And as I also said before, we've seen Kevin Lee fold under pressure and end up getting submitted regardless of that wrestling base. How did he lose to Tony Ferguson? Triangle choke. How did he lose to Charles Oliveira? He fell right into a guillotine. So when he's facing a talented wrestler with extreme cardio and forward pressure and that dog mentality, which I think Rinat embodies perfectly, I don't think it fares too well for Kevin Lee. And as much as I'd like to see him succeed because he's returning to the UFC, it's Kevin Lee. He was once a legitimate title contender. This guy had a fast ascension in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And I'd love to see him succeed again because his name brings value to the promotion. But unfortunately, I think Rinat is going to get to him. He's going to use that pressure. He's going to use those takedowns to gas out Kevin Lee, wear him out, wear him down, make him tired in that first round. And I think in that second round, Rinat is going to get Kevin Lee on the ground. He's going to be raining down a barrage of heavy ground and pound strikes until Kevin Lee is just done, ready to get out of that octagon. He's going to be defending with all he has, and Rinat is going to be able to sneak his arms under the neck and snag a rear naked choke. I believe Rinat Fakhretdinov wins this fight by second round submission. Lock it in, take it to the bank. That is my pick. So, with that being said, we are going to move on to the main card of this fight night. And the first fight on this main card, although it is only a fight night, is already delivering with an absolute banger. We have Bruno the Hulk Ferreira versus Nursultan Ruziboyev. Now, Nursultan is making his UFC debut. He's looking to make a statement, and that he's been doing. In his past 8 fights, he's won them all. The last 3 of his 4 fights have come by submission in relation to the arm, 2 Kimuras, 1 armbar. He's a talented fighter, and he's a prospect the UFC would like to see prosper. But, Bruno Ferreira is called the Hulk for a reason. His nickname is not the Hulk because he looks like the Hulk. His nickname is the Hulk because he hits like the Hulk. That man is strong. Every single punch he packs brings extreme levels of power, and if he touches your chin, you're going to sleep. And we saw this in his UFC debut. His UFC debut was against not a high-level fighter, but a respectable opponent in Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. Gregory Rodriguez has some solid wins. He beat Julian Marquez, separated him from consciousness, and then proceeded to do the same thing to Kennedy Njeku after receiving one of the nastiest cuts in fight we have ever seen. Gregory Rodriguez had a gash over his eye that was leaking bad, and he fought through that gash when many thought it was over and knocked Kennedy out. He has 2 high-level names that he has separated from consciousness on his resume, and Bruno Ferreira, in his UFC debut at that, put Gregory Rodriguez on the canvas. He dropped him on his butt, and that fight was over. Bruno Ferreira looked like he didn't really break much of a sweat against Gregory Rodriguez, and I think his power is going to prove to be a problem for a guy like Nursultan, whose grappling-based mixed martial arts ability doesn't necessarily translate on the feet. Nursultan is talented. I said he's on an 8-fight win streak. 3 of his last 4 wins have come by submission. So if you want to risk it for the biscuit and try to make a little good money here with a good value bet, I'd say place some money on Nursultan by submission. But if I'm a betting man, I'm putting no money on Nursultan at all. I'm walking over to my book. I'm telling him, hey, Bruno Ferreira by knockout, lock it in. I'm placing that bet. I really just don't see how Bruno's power gets overcome in this fight unless Nursultan can somehow take down Bruno and capitalize on that first takedown, because I think if Bruno gets taken down and he gets back up, that's it. I just don't see this fight going the distance, and I see Bruno Ferreira knocking Nursultan Ruzabayev out cold. That is my prediction, and if you're going to put some money on this fight, I'd put it on Bruno the Hulk Ferreira, because like I said, this man doesn't look like the Hulk. He hits like the Hulk. Now, moving on to the second fight on the main card. Guys, this fight is an absolute banger. This fight night is not just a regular fight night. This is not just a filler card they put together. You have some heat, some absolutely incredible action-packed fights delivering for the majority of this fight night, and here is another one. Ismael Bonfim versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Ismael Bonfim made an absolute statement in his UFC debut. He knocked Terrence McKinney out cold, and he didn't just do it like a normal man would. He threw a flying switch knee that landed right on the chin. Sweet chin music. You could hear that knee crack Terrence McKinney's jaw as he fell over unconscious onto the canvas face first. Ismael Bonfim made an absolute statement in his UFC debut. He has a very solid frame. He's a good wrestler. And not only that, that man can crack. He is an all-around five-tool fighter. He has champ potential in the lightweight division, in my opinion. I think Ismael Bonfim can go as far as his training and his coaches take him. I really think he has the raw talent and athletic ability that compares to any other great in this sport. Ismael Bonfim is a very, very good, well-put-together fighter. And you look at a guy like Benoit Saint-Denis, he's talented. He's coming off of a fight against Gabriel Miranda where he had 3 knockdowns in that fight. It's hard to knock down another man who is trained to kill you 3 times over the course of 15 minutes. But the level of competition isn't there. Who is Gabriel Miranda? Exactly. You cannot answer that question because he is not, his name doesn't add much value to a guy like Saint Denis' schedule, whereas a guy like Ismael Bonfim comes into the UFC, takes the UFC, grabs it by the throat, and takes it by storm, knocking out Terrence McKinney, a guy who in his UFC debut set the lightweight record for the fastest knockout ever when he knocked out Matt Frevola in 7 seconds. Matt, I love you. Thank you for the gloves. I'm sorry I had to bring that one up, but I'm just saying Terrence McKinney is the real deal, and Ismael Bonfim took care of him handily and easily at that. Ismael Bonfim is strong, solid, talented, and smart, and I do not see this fight going any way other than Ismael Bonfim by knockout in the second round. I think Benoit Saint-Denis will have his moments. We saw he can strike. He landed 3 knockdowns in his last fight, but I don't think he is as durable, as talented, or as powerful as Ismael Bonfim, which is why I'm taking Ismael Bonfim by second round knockout. That is my pick, ladies and gentlemen. That being said, we are going to move on to the third fight on this main card. The only 2 women who are fighting on this main card. We have Ariane Lipski versus Melissa Gatto. And guys, my pick for this one is Ariane Lipski by decision. Now, neither of these 2 are necessarily finishers. We know the women are smaller. It's harder to generate that power at that size and get a finish. But when you look at Ariane Lipski, she is coming off of an absolutely dominating win over JJ Aldrich. That fight was not even close. If you look at the numbers, Ariane Lipski blew her out of the water and actually landed 2 takedowns while defending 12 coming from the other side. JJ Aldrich was 0 for 12 on takedowns in that fight. Ariane Lipski is a highly skilled wrestler, grappler, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. And when you look at Melissa Gatto, she's coming off of a loss to Tracy Cortez, who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappling specialist. I think that Ariane Lipski's style and pressure is going to cause problems and pose a threat towards Melissa Gatto for the entirety of the fight. Now, I don't think Ariane Lipski is going to be able to get the finish in this fight because she is not necessarily a submission artist, but she is a good grappler, as we saw against JJ Aldrich. And remember, JJ Aldrich is no slouch. She beat Jillian Robertson, who has been in the UFC for a long time. She's a respected veteran in this sport, has fought against the highest level of female fighters, and JJ Aldrich beat her. Now, JJ Aldrich got handled, absolutely manhandled, or woman-handled, should I say, by Ariane Lipski, and that is why I am taking Ariane Lipski to beat Melissa Gatto by a 3-round dominant 15-minute decision in this fight. The one-woman fight on this card, I think, female fight on this card, and I think it's going to deliver. Give me Ariane Lipski by decision, and a dominating one at that. Next, we are going to move on to the 4th fight on this main card. And guys, as I said before, this is not just a regular fight night. These fights just keep delivering. It keeps getting more and more interesting as we go. And in this fight, we have an up-and-coming prospect in Michael Morales going up against the established but everlastingly dangerous Max Pain Griffin. His nickname is Pain, and he brings the pain. Max Griffin does not only have wins and fights against high-level opponents. Let's start with his decision loss against Neil Magny. Neil Magny is a talented fighter. He's a consistent perennial top 15 guy. And Max Griffin brought the fight to Neil Magny. Now, he may have lost that decision, but it was not necessarily completely staggered towards Magny. It was a relatively close fight. There was a clear winner, and it was not Max Griffin, but Max Griffin fought well. He also has wins over guys like Carlos Condit, who are extremely talented strikers, veterans of the sport, and Carlos Condit, with all the experience and skill and technicality that he has, was not able to overcome the task that is Max Griffin, and that is why I don't think Michael Morales will be able to either. I know Michael Morales is a highly touted prospect. He knocked out Trevin Giles in the first round. In his UFC debut, he is a very talented prospect, but we have to remember, he's not the only one with knockouts on his resume. Max Griffin, the first time I watched Max Griffin fight live was when he fought Keenan Song. He knocked Keenan Song out cold. He separated Keenan Song's body from his consciousness. Keenan Song was left lying lifeless on the floor of the octagon while Max Griffin put on one of the coldest celebrations in UFC history of all time, in my opinion, where he fell over and pretended to be asleep as his opponent was genuinely asleep on the floor of the cage. It was an incredible performance from Max Griffin, where really there was no contest in that fight. It was a domination. And Michael Morales has 2 knockouts in his first 2 fights in the UFC. He knocked out Trevin Giles in the first round, did it in the third round in his second fight. He's good. He's powerful. He's technical. But I don't think his power or technicality is going to be able to overcome the experience, skill, and fight IQ and violence that Max Griffin brings every time he steps into the cage. Max Griffin is a skilled fighter for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and he has been at this for a while, and he is not old. He is not past his prime. Max Griffin is still there. Max Griffin is talented. He's strong. He's skilled. He's fast. And most of all, he is smart. He's battle-tested. Michael Morales, his level of competition, again, like I said, is not there. And in his first fight, he was getting touched up by Trevin Giles before, of course, he landed the vicious, fatal knockout blow. But it is not enough. He has not done enough to convince me that he is going to come out as the victor of this fight. You gotta give me Max Griffin by knockout to win this fight. Now, that being said, I say by knockout. I'll give Michael Morales his flowers. He's tough. We've seen him eat some shots in the Ultimate Fighting Championship and in his career in general, and he is skilled. I'm not saying this fight is going to be one-sided. So do I see this fight going to Max Griffin? Yes. Do I see it going to a possible hard-fought decision? Yes, that's also a possibility. So it's hard for me to dictate whether this fight is going to end after 15 minutes, 3 rounds of war, or if Max Griffin is going to crack that chin. But if I'm a betting man, I'm taking Max Griffin money line in this fight if I want to win some money. And I'm locking it in, taking it straight to the bank. Michael Morales is a talented prospect, but I don't know if he's talented enough. Either way, this fight will either prove to be the ascension of Michael Morales and give him a shot at someone in the top 15 in his next fight, or it will be Max Griffin shutting the door on Michael Morales' time as a prospect and saying, this is the UFC, this is the real deal, welcome to fighting, and welcome to fighting guys who you can't just knock out. And that's how I think this fight's going to go. Michael Morales is going to lose to Max Griffin after 15 minutes. Max Griffin, money line, lock it in. Next, we are moving on to the co-main event of this fight night. And once again, you see me, I'm bouncing in my seat. I am literally beyond excited to begin talking about this fight because it gives me goosebumps. You have Grant Dawson on one side, a guy he has a big frame, he's strong, powerful, can strike, but all of his finishes in the UFC have actually come by submission. I believe he has 3 submissions in the UFC. He's fighting a guy in Damir Ismagulov who is an absolute predator. He hunts you down, chases after you with his endless cardio like Rinat for the entirety of the fight. Damir Ismagulov is a talented wrestler, and his only loss in the UFC came against Arman Tsoukakian, who is, again, another extremely high-level fighter. Arman is the only guy who pushed Islam Makhachev in his prime to a decision. He brought the fight to the current lightweight champ, Islam Makhachev, and Arman Tsoukakian is talented. And that fight was not a complete blowout. Damir Ismagulov was able to hold his own on the feet against Arman. He just could not stop Arman's dominant wrestling and takedowns. Arman Tsoukakian is a high-level grappler. That being said, so is Damir, and that is why I'm taking Damir Ismagulov by decision in this fight. If you look at Damir's last fights, he uses his takedowns, his cardio, his wrestling, and his pressure to overwhelm and break his opponents, but he is not a finisher. His resume speaks for itself. He has beaten high-level guys like Joel Alvarez, Thiago Moises, Rafael Alves, and Garam Kudaladzhi. All of these guys are very good fighters, but what do these fights have in common? They have Damir Ismagulov coming out on top by decision. They were all 3-rounders, and they all ended up the same way. Damir Ismagulov spent 15 minutes establishing his pressure, his cardio, and his wrestling, and using that high-level chain wrestling and endless cardio to establish his presence in that octagon and establish himself as the dominant fighter in all 4 of those fights. Now, let me say those names one more time. We have Joel Alvarez, Thiago Moises, Rafael Alves, and Garam Kudaladzhi. These are 4 guys that are all arguably as good as a ranked fighter or have been ranked. Thiago Moises has been ranked in the top 15. Joel Alvarez has been ranked in the top 15. Rafael Alves put on a good fight against Drew Dober and almost beat Drew Dober until he caught that nasty body shot from the straight right in the final round. I know that Grant Dawson is a good fighter. I know he's done things in the UFC. He's solid. He has a solid frame, but I would just say he's solid. That's it. Damir Ismagulov is high level. His wrestling is going to overwhelm you unless you're a guy like Arman Tsoukakian, who is a better wrestler. Arman is extremely high level. He is champ potential. And now I'm not saying Damir does not have champ potential, but if you cannot wrestle, Damir will exploit that. He will take advantage of that, and he will beat you, break you, wear you down for 15 minutes. Now, Grant Dawson, like I said, has 3 submissions in the UFC. So is it possible Damir shoots for a lazy takedown and runs into a guillotine or something of the sorts? Yes, but in those names I listed, you have specifically Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises is one of the highest level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the Ultimate Fighting Championship to date. Did he run into a submission against Thiago Moises? No, absolutely he did not. He dominated Thiago Moises just as he did all of the other 3 opponents I listed. That is why I'm taking Damir Ismagulov in this fight. He is a high-level fighter who has beaten high-level guys and beaten all of them by decision, so why would that trend change now? I am taking Damir Ismagulov by decision over Grant Dawson, and to be honest with you guys, if there's a lock of the night, if there even is a lock, this is as close of a lock as a lock can be in gambling or in betting. Damir Ismagulov has shown over and over and over again he is a talented wrestler and he wins by decision. So if you are a betting man, or if you're not a betting man but you're looking to dabble in some gambling, throw some money on the table, see if you can up the stakes and win a little coin, give me Damir Ismagulov by decision. That is my lock of the night. Guys, I apologize for all the coughing. I have a little bit of a dry throat. But ignore that, because my picks are still going to bring you that green, bring you that cash. And that is my decision, or my prediction of what will happen in this weekend's Fight Night's co-main event. Damir Ismagulov by decision, lock of the night. Now, if I had a band, or if I had a producer and editor, I'd ask for a drum roll, but I don't, so I'll create one myself. We are talking about now the main event of this fight night, the fight in which this card was built around, the fight I have been buzzing about and waiting to talk about for the entire 25 minutes of this podcast so far. You have Magomedov versus Sean Strickland. Now, this fight is beyond interesting to me. Magomedov is a highly touted prospect, but we've only seen him in the UFC for a total of 19 seconds. Like I said at the beginning of this video, Magomedov has fought one time, and in that one time, 19 seconds, the fight was over. Now, in those 19 seconds, he looked fantastic. He threw a beautiful front kick to his opponent's face that wobbled his opponent, and then he landed an extremely precise uppercut up against the fence that dropped his opponent, and the ground and pound that followed put his opponent to sleep out cold. It was not a TKO, that was a knockout, and there was no doubt left in the 19 seconds that fight took place. Magomedov dominated in his UFC debut, which is why he's getting to fight the number 7 ranked middleweight after just for one fight in the UFC against another guy who's unranked. Abus does not have a number next to his name, but I don't think that matters. I think because of the hype and because of his performance, you know this guy is the real deal. I think it was the right decision giving him a top 10 matchup. Now, of course, that top 10 matchup happens to be Sean Strickland, the guy who is ready to fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. Sean Strickland is a savage, and he has shown that. He has fought everybody and everybody. He fought Uriah Hall. He fought Jared Cannonier. He has fought Alex Pereira. He takes the fights that guys don't want to take. Nobody wanted to fight Alex. Sean took that fight. He paid the price for it, but he learns his lessons and continues to be game for any fight at any time, and that is the case here. Now, do I think this is going to go the same way as his fight did with Alex? Absolutely not. I think Sean Strickland's going to win this fight. Now, Sean Strickland, I know some of you may be doubting me right now. Sean Strickland is the underdog going into this fight, but we have to remember his most previous win against Nasruddin Imavov. Nasruddin Imavov is a disguised Dagestani fighting with the French flag, who is a high-level wrestler and has power and has good technical striking. And he can fight. Everybody thought Nasruddin Imavov was going to beat Sean Strickland. He has a similar frame as Magomedov. He has a similar fighting style as Magomedov, and he came in at minus money, at favorited over Sean Strickland. It is so similar, this fight, to Sean versus Nasruddin Imavov. The only difference is for this fight, Sean Strickland actually had a training camp. Sean Strickland took the Nasruddin Imavov fight on short notice. I believe it was less than a week or two's notice, and that is impressive. The fact that he dominated Nasruddin Imavov in a 5-round hard-fought war of a decision. He won that fight, and he more than won it. I believe he outlanded Nasruddin by about 60 to 70 total strikes, and that right there is saying something. Sean Strickland also arguably beat the possible current number 1 contender. He has a loss to Jared Cannonier on his record. But if you look at the numbers, Sean Strickland outlanded Jared Cannonier 157 to 141 and landed the only takedown of that fight. Jared Cannonier is coming off of one of the most dominant performances in UFC history. His round 2 against Marvin Vettori was possibly the most dominant round ever in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I was scared for Marvin Vettori's health. I was scared for his brain. I was scared for his future. Not just his future as a fighter, his future as a human being. And to be honest with you, that is a rightfully so, or that is a rightful fear that resonated within me. Jared Cannonier was bringing the fight to Marvin, putting it on him, and Sean Strickland did not let Jared do that to him. He arguably won that fight, and again, going back to his fight against Nasruddin Imavov, he dominated that fight. Sean Strickland has a very educated jab. He stays behind his jab, and he uses his jab to set up and put together very crisp, technical, short, but good boxing combination. Sean Strickland is a boxer, and he can also grapple, as he showed in his win in the 5-round decision over Uriah Hall. Now, Abus Magomedov has a lot of upside to him, but I keep saying we've only seen him fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship for a total of 19 seconds, and you cannot, no matter what, convince me to take Abus Magomedov in this fight over an experienced, seasoned, talented veteran at that, who has beaten a guy who is very similar to Abus Magomedov. I am taking Sean Strickland to win this fight by decision. I think it's going to be 25 minutes of war. Abus will have his moments. He might hit Sean once or twice, land a few clean shots, maybe wobble Sean once, but Sean has a solid chin. Alex Pereira is a special case. Not many guys can finish Sean Strickland, and he keeps coming forward no matter what. He stays behind that jab, and he jabs at you all night until you are tired, you are gassed, you are exhausted, and you want to quit. Sean Strickland is not just a gatekeeper, ladies and gentlemen. I believe Sean Strickland has the ability to challenge for a title. Do I think he could beat Israel Adesanya? No. But do I think anyone at the 185-pound mark can beat Israel Adesanya? Absolutely not. He is just on a level of his own at this current moment. I believe he is already the middleweight GOAT, and if he is not, he will claim that title once and for all within his next few fights. I mean, look, you have Dricus du Plessis, who's the possible number one contender if he beats Robert Whittaker. Dricus du Plessis is not beating Israel Adesanya. There's no chance. Israel is on another level when it comes to striking, and his takedown defense is incredible. Robert Whittaker, if he wins that fight, he's not beating Israel. He's lost to Israel twice, convincingly at that. Both times. The second fight was a little bit better, but Israel is in his own class. That doesn't mean I don't think Sean could challenge for a title. I think Sean Strickland could bring the fight to Izzy. He'll establish that jab. He will land that jab. I don't think he will win that fight, but I think it is competitive, and I think Abus Magomedov does not have a competitive fight with the current middleweight champion, Israel the Last Stylebender Adesanya. So, with all that being said, with Abus Magomedov being comparable of a fighter to Nasruddin Imavov, with Sean Strickland having a much stronger resume, with Sean Strickland having an educated jab, with Sean Strickland just having more as a martial artist, it seems, and having more in his background, in his resume. I'm taking Sean Strickland to win this fight by 5-round, 25-minute, hard-fought decision. Sean Strickland by decision. Lock it in. Take it to the bank. That is my pick now. 32 minutes in, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, The Chokehold Hour, once again. I know it hurt my heart to be gone for a month. It truly, truly did. I love this sport. I love the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and I am so blessed that I have this microphone and this computer that gives me the ability to discuss mixed martial arts and the Ultimate Fighting Championship to you guys, my viewers, and honestly, just to discuss it in general. It is a privilege and an honor that I get to watch these cards and these fight nights each weekend, and I am so excited to do so this Saturday with this fight. Now, I do have work, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, but you guys all know we're all people. We got to make that money somehow, and that is what I am doing this Saturday while I will be watching this here fight night. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I just want to let you all know, if you want to see more of the Chokehold Hour, check out my socials. My TikTok is at the Chokehold Hour. My Instagram is at the Chokehold Hour, and my YouTube is also at the Chokehold Hour. All of my socials are the same. I made it easy for you so you can access my content on demand whenever you need and whenever you please. If you want to make some money, I promise you, I know what I'm talking about. I am your guy. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to Matt Frivola one more time, because these gloves are my prized possession now. Signed Matt Frivola Steamroller gloves. I am over the moon over this acquisition. We got the picture too. Guys, I am gonna get this framed, I promise you. But once again, thank you all so much for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. That is the Chokehold Hour.